Good morning. This is a discussion of the second quarter 2017 GDP report. Um, those of you who have followed us for a while know that we use the gold for the current quarter, we use red for the immediately preceding quarter, and we use blue for the quarter a year ago, the equivalent quarter. This year's report came in, or this quarter's report came in at 2.6%. We are nevertheless not very impressed by these numbers. And the reason for that is here at the personal consumption expenditure number, which came in at just 1.93%. That was the biggest component of GDP, and we are concerned that so much of the GDP is dependent upon personal consumption expenditures. Looking at the breakdown of personal consumption expenditures for the second quarter, you'll see that most of this was from services, and most of that came from housing and utilities and from healthcare. Of this 91% here, 70% was attributable to those particular services. So that would leave 1.23% for PCE, personal consumption expenditures. Not great in our view. The other thing that you'll see and we'll discuss a little later is the fact that so much of the economy is depending on personal consumption expenditures, and that consumers are spending so much in debt service relative to their take-home income. So we are concerned. The next big element of the second quarter GDP was gross domestic investment, which increased to 34 basis points. You'll see that inventories are not much increasing, which signals to me that the economy is not as robust as people might think. We did see some fixed investment, particularly in computers, IT, and peripherals, which is hopeful, but overall, this number up here, the virtual no increase in inventories, concerns us. The next element, and actually one of the bright spots of this GDP report, is net exports. And you'll see that our export capacity in the last two quarters, 2017 Q1 and second quarter 2017, were both fairly robust, with nearly 100 basis points and another 50 basis points of exports. We look very favorably on that. Unfortunately, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which releases the GDP numbers, does not say up front what the basis of those exports are. We would have to dig into it to find out whether this is things like oil and gas or agricultural exports, or whether it's processed goods, but that number is one of the bright spots of this particular quarter. The government consumption expenditures was not terribly material net. There was a big increase in, 20 basis points increase in national defense spending, which had fallen the last quarter, and state and local governments trimmed, and the federal government's non-defense spending also trimmed. So not much really to speak of here. We said earlier that we thought that this was kind of a Goldilocks quarter, and we also have some concerns prospectively about the state of GDP going forward. This schedule, let me explain it. This is the 3-month yield curve on treasuries, and this is the 10-month. And we've noticed a significant decline in the spread between the 10-year and the 3-month that has occurred since the beginning of the year. Here in the second quarter, you can see that this line, which is the spread between the two, has fallen from about 1.5% down to nearly 1% over here, so 50 basis point drop, and that's just in the second quarter. More disconcerting is this schedule, which is just for July. Here in July, and particularly at this point, this is not an inverted yield curve. Just so don't be frightened. But we saw the spread between the 10-year and the 3-month go to just slightly over 100 basis points, just 1%. It was 1.08% difference. Economists at the Federal Reserve here in New York have warned that as long as the spread between the 10-year and the 3-month curve is at least 120 basis points, the risk of a recession was only 5%. Well, this spread is now or was below 120 basis points. You can see that it has picked up somewhat since Friday, but nevertheless we remain concerned. This was the matter that we raised with respect to personal consumption expenditures. As you can see, the consumer debt service payments as a percentage of disposable personal income are now at the highest levels they have been since the end of the Great Recession, which is over here in the grayscale. This is out of the Federal Reserve of St. Louis database. Over here, you can see that and this line shows the relationship that we're up at that same level. So I would not count on consumers for being able to spend much. Now, of course, prior to the recession, they were spending more, but I don't think people are inclined to spend the way that they used to, or to service debt the way they used to. We post this data first on our website, www.stuysquare.com. We post it on our Twitter feed, which is @Stuysquare here. And then we post it on our LinkedIn page here. So this data is also provided along with our jobs report to subscribers to our newsletter, which contains free information and premium content, which you can subscribe to. And you simply contact us, and we'll give you the data. There are 2 contact forms here and under this drop-down menu. We can give you additional details about the premium content. That concludes our report for the second quarter 2017 GDP. We will be back on August 4th with the employment situation when it is released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And of course, we'll be hopping on if there are any big political or economic developments in the meantime. Have a great weekend. We'll speak to you soon. Thank you for listening.